Hello and welcome back to the Nest and Inside the Iggles live show. Thank you guys very much for joining us on this Friday. Friday the 13th is the day. It is the day. There's college football tonight. Don't bet on it. It's an unlucky day. We might get into some superstition stuff later on, but we do have a lot to cover. So I'm just going to bring in my co-hosts right now. We got Jeffrey Knox. We got Brandon Pockris. How you guys doing today?
What's happening, man? What's happening? Brian Dawkins' birthday, Friday the 13th.
So he turns. What does he turn? Well, I guess that makes sense. There's a Friday the 13th every single year. So never mind. That was dumb. Well, happy birthday, Brian Dawkins.
Just happens to fall on Friday the 13th for him. But yeah, the GOAT. That's my guy. Like him and Randall. Those are my Eagles. Greatest of all time. Kelsey's kind of sneaking in there too, but it's gonna always be Dawk for me. I just had to suffer through stuff with him, I guess.
That's fair. I just last night somebody tweeted that it was a long time ago. It was when Dawkins was with the Broncos and that guy on the Chiefs caught the ball around him. I was like, why do you do him dirty like that? Why do we put this clip out here? There's no reason for that. It's uncalled for, and quite frankly, I won't stand for it. But that's my gripe sesh. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing good. Happy to be back after not making the first episode, and can't wait to talk some Eagles and Jets, because that is going to, at least in my eyes, be a very interesting matchup that has a few different wrinkles now because of some injuries.
Yes, it does. We do. So yeah, that kind of let's get into it. With Brandon being the Eagles Jets guy, we actually have a Jets centric guest is going to join us. That way we can do a little bit of behind enemy lines kind of a thing. Jeffrey, you want to intro him real quick?
My guy. I've known Mike for a while. Mike is a different dude, man. If you need anything written about football, Mike can do it. I think there was one time Mike must have put out like 500 articles in a month or something like that. Like when FanSided was getting rolling for real, Mike was one of those dudes that was writing everything. So Giants, Toronto Raptors, I've lost track, man. Like Spin Zone. You need football talked about. Mike can talk about football. One of the editors over the Jet Press, associate editor with FanSided, host of our Stack in the Box podcast. Bring him on in. He's a guy.
If I can do this, there we go. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good, and I've written a lot, Jeffrey. If I wrote 500 in a month, I don't know what would happen in my brain, but yeah, 16 a day is it's a little much, but I mean, I could pump them out when I need to.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that's a pandemic kind of move.
Man, but I wasn't wrong about the resume, man. I know I left probably about 6 or 7 things that you do out, but welcome to the broadcast, man. Long overdue.
Thanks for the intro, man. Glad to be here.
So Eagles are playing Jets. We'll bring up the injury report later. But let's kind of start here. What are the Jets vibes right now? Overall vibes. Because it seems like it's been a little hairy, because it seemed like a couple weeks ago, or I guess 3 weeks ago, everybody was out on Zach Wilson. And then after the Sunday night game with the Chiefs, he played well. And then Rodney Harrison, that's his name, right? Rodney Harrison made fun of him, like aggressively so. And then it seemed like everybody kind of felt bad for Zach Wilson. And then now everybody's kind of in on Zach Wilson. So what is the overall vibes in reality?
Well, in's a strong word, because they know they're very limited. You could see in the way they call games, they know they're very limited. But I think the general vibes are they're kind of playing with house money right now. They have a formula where they're going to try to win, which is going to be running the ball with Breece Hall and then playing really good defense. But in the Kansas City game especially, there was a lot of, F it, let's try this. F it, let's try that. And it worked for a little bit. And I feel like this is kind of what fans have been asking for a while, because for all of Zach Wilson's problems, the one thing that everybody will keep saying is great about Zach Wilson is the arm talent, the arm talent, the arm talent. Well, what good's the arm talent if all he's doing is checking down in the flat to Tyler Conklin? There's no point. You could have the biggest noodle arm. You could be Ryan Lindley noodle arm and play quarterback like that. Now, they actually let him rip that big seam throw down to Conklin they had in the last game against Denver, a big play action shot to Garrett Wilson. Like, they're starting to open things up a little bit. Against the Eagles, though, I think everybody's kind of assuming, like, all right, well, we'll get to 2-4 at the bye and then kind of reevaluate things. There really isn't a ton of hope, mostly just because the things that the Jets are good at, the Eagles are very good at combating. And the Jets really don't have the horses right now to kind of win another way. They can't win with Zach Wilson throwing for 400 yards. They have to win a very specific way, and Philly can counter that.
Brandon, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, and I agree with that 100%. It's like, Zach Wilson, you could argue going into that Chiefs game, it was basically if he had a bad game, he was done. Not just done for him being a starter, but probably his Jets career. And it's interesting because they're finally starting to let him throw the ball, as Mike said. Like they're actually letting him try to push the offense down the field. And that in itself is going to help open up the run game. I think looking at this Eagles game compared to Denver last week, Denver has one of the historically worst rushing defenses, I think, in NFL history, not just this year, but
Pretty bad.
in a very, very long time.
Only one that's worse is the 2008 Lions, the famously good 2008 Lions.
Exactly. So they didn't put a lot on Wilson's plate in my eyes because they didn't really have to. Like they let just Breece Hall run wild, and you saw him rip off the 72-yard touchdown run. This is a game where, if at least in my eyes, if the Jets want to have a shot to win, they have to throw the ball. Because we'll obviously get into the injuries later. It may be a little bit easier, but that Eagles defensive front seven, that's their bread and butter. That's one of the best aspects of this Philadelphia team. The secondary has a lot of talent, but they're also impacted by injuries. It also isn't the strongest part of their team. They've also given up yardage. We saw Sam Howell do it for the Commanders and take the Eagles to overtime. So there is a pathway. It's just a matter of, can Zach Wilson execute it? And can Zach Wilson get that job done? And I guess even more important than that, will the Jets coaches actually allow him to do so?
I was hashtagging Hallelujah when, we had this hiring thing back in like 2020. And it was, you had Brandon Staley out there. You had Nick Sirianni, who was honestly the Eagles' last choice and things of that nature. They wanted some other guys. One of the guys was Saleh. I know this is a pass-first, offensive-centric league and things of that nature. I like Saleh. He was one of those guys I was like, if I was going to go with the defensive choice, I probably would have gone with him. So that's my theory about him. I was kind of bummed out when he didn't become the Eagles head coach, but seems like he's a good guy to me. Seems like he knows what he's doing. What's the vibe and the temperament around the Jets fan base when it comes to him?
He can be a little irritating, specifically with injury things. He's the king of, we think this guy's going to be fine, and then he won't play for 3 weeks. So other than that, I feel like a lot of fans kind of notice the situation he's in. Like, obviously, there's game-to-game things. Like, he had a big clock management blunder in the Broncos game. And for a guy whose mantra is all gas, no brakes, there's a lot of braking in terms of being critical of guys that they probably need to be critical of. Like, I get he's a player's coach, but sometimes you just want to see a little more teeth from him, especially if he's a big, tough, angry-looking dude. He could probably beat every other coach up in the league, I think, physically. Maybe him and Vrabel. I think, are the top two. But I think they realize that it's hard to win with what they are at quarterback with Zach Wilson and Mike White and Joe Flacco. Like, the record isn't good. I think he's 13-25 as a head coach. But the fact that he's won 13 games with Zach Wilson, what's left of Joe Flacco, and Mike White, I think people are saying, you know what? Like, I give him credit for that. And they especially give him credit for coaching up this defense, because we've seen a lot of times that even if you have good defensive players, Denver, the wrong coach can't use them right. Robert Saleh is good at identifying defensive talent and putting him in the right position. I mean, Sauce Gardner, do we need we say any more about how good he's been? A lot of the guys on the defensive line, obviously I think Quinnen Williams has really exploded under Robert Saleh after a couple of years of watching him under Adam Gase, which was kind of stinky. So he's not perfect, but they are kind of grading on a curve, because when you go from Aaron Rodgers and then after 10 minutes, no more Aaron Rodgers for the year, and then there's Zach Wilson, I think people realize that the fact he even won that Buffalo game #1 and the fact that he's kind of kept morale where it is pretty impressive.
So real quick before you go, Jake, so what's his leash look like? I know the Jets fans are temporarily like on occasion like can be an impatient, kind of like Eagles fans, but how long is Saleh's leash?
Well, I don't think it matters how long his leash is because of what they did to get Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers likes Robert Saleh and they go 2-15, are they firing Robert Saleh? I don't think so. If Nathaniel Hackett has the 32nd ranked offense in the league, are they going to fire Nathaniel Hackett? That's Aaron Rodgers' guy. So that was part of the frustrating part about losing earlier this year. On top of the fact we thought we'd be watching Rodgers and not Zach Wilson, it seemed like there was no pound of flesh that fans could get. There was no way to, all right, well, we could lose and then get that guy out and then get a better guy in because everything's so tied up in Rodgers. So I think he'll be back for a fourth season, but that's going to be a real make or break. I think if he doesn't win after that year or like get him to the playoffs or show some sort of positive momentum in the right direction, I feel like then they might actually start calling for Robert Saleh. Like you get dumb sports radio callers that always say, fire everybody. Like outside of those guys who are kind of outliers, I feel like the majority of Jets fans are pretty happy with what Saleh's done with this team.
Yeah, that seems kind of like a weird situation too, with him being a defensive coach, like that his offense isn't producing. Yeah, it almost seems like that would be a Nathaniel Hackett thing. But yeah, with Aaron Rodgers there, I guess that does make sense that they're kind of best fellas is what they are. I don't know.
I mean, the other thing too, when you said like it's Nathaniel Hackett's thing, he basically has said from the beginning is I'm just going to be like coaching defense and leadership and all that. Hackett's got the offense. Now, when it was Hackett and Rodgers, there was a level of trust there because Aaron Rodgers could basically call his own plays at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's proven he could do that. He has that sort of cerebral football brain. Half the time he makes up his own plays anyway with all the hot routes and audibles that he calls. And then Zach Wilson comes in and immediately they got to completely get rid of everything because Nathaniel Hackett's offense, just how it is stylistically, is very still. There's not a lot of motion. There's not a lot of play action. Now, with Aaron Rodgers, they kind of let him make it up on the fly and kind of do whatever he wants based on what he sees pre-snap. Now, Zach Wilson, you got to hold his hand a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it took a couple games to find a good balance, and it didn't help that they got, Bills, Cowboys, Patriots, boom, 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 right off the bat, which are all really good defenses. But I think now there's finally some sort of identity that they have.
Now, so as kind of hitting on that offense thing, there's kind of a two-part question. Not even two-part questions, just two separate questions. Number one, what's his name? Elijah Vera Tucker is out. Wondering how big of a loss that is. And then also, where is Dalvin Cook? Are my two questions.
Well, Elijah Vera Tucker is not going to play for the Jets again this season, and that's now 2 season-ending injuries back-to-back because he messed up his triceps, I think, last year. Sucks for him. And Dalvin Cook shouldn't be anywhere near organized football ever again. But I'll go with Vera Tucker first. I mean,
very fair.
Out in terms of just importance, not skill, importance, he might have been the most important player in that offense outside of Rodgers because the offensive line is really not as bad as people think it is. It's not particularly good. But, that's the common refrain of fans like, oh, the offensive line and the play calling. It's like, all right, it's not amazing, but you can work with it. But now they're going to put in probably Max Mitchell, who was a 4th-round rookie last year, and he really struggled in the preseason. They can move Mekhi Becton back over to right tackle after moving him back to left tackle. If Dwayne Brown, who also stunk, comes back, the tackle spots are in complete disarray. Interior, you could work with. Laken Tomlinson was awful last year, but he's been better. Connor McGovern, solid center, and then Joe Tippmann, a rookie, is played like a top 50 offensive lineman should play. But the tackles are in a complete state of flux. And again, with how deep Philly is on that front four, this is not the team to experiment with your tackles against. Dalvin Cook has been so bad, I don't even want to dignify him by talking about him on this show. I mean, he doesn't even have 100 yards yet. It's week 6. He doesn't have 100 yards. The worst part of it, I mean, now he's getting out snapped by Michael Carter, so he's actually might be the third running back. The worst part of it, too, is every time he's on the field, because he can't pass block, they're obligated to get him the ball. Like, I think in the Chiefs game, he had like 5 carries or 4 carries, and he only had like 9 or 10 offensive snaps. And it was very obvious, I think, during the Chiefs game, big play down the seam, and then Breece Hall with a nice run, and then everybody stops. They got to bring Cook in. He does this weird little jittery thing that when he was in Minnesota and with Florida State, people respected because he was fast and he was hard to tackle. Now no one's like, oh, you're an old man. You're not going to do anything. And then they just hit him. I think in terms of rushing yards over expected, he's like the worst running back in the league. And the gap between him and the second worst is like the gap between number 1 and number 10. Like it's gigantic how quickly he's fallen off because he was all speed and elusiveness guy. So he's not going to be like a power back, like a one-cut power back. He's not really going to pass block. If he had receiving value, then that's gone because Wilson's not really throwing the ball to backs a lot. That's just not how they're using it. So it's getting to the point where on the Jeff Press podcast and a couple different articles, we've said, all right, maybe they should just eat the money and get rid of him. because he's really not showing anything. Like Dalvin Cook is.
Toast.
I hate to use this term, but I mean it's very obvious he's washed. And I didn't think he'd be washed. I advocated for them to sign him, but it's a tough watch, man.
Since we're putting people on milk cartons, I want to talk about Jermaine Johnson. Now, I'm gonna get both of you guys' opinion on this. Like Mike, you know this, Dawn of the Dog and everything. They're do a good job of covering the Bulldogs all the time and stuff. So when they were putting people on like all these mock drafts and things of that nature, they kept trying to send Jermaine Johnson to Philly. And I asked everybody Dawn of the Dog, and they were like, "You don't want that guy; he's lazy." Now, I was still a fan anyway, and I still kept seeing mocks where he was like a top 15 guy, and somebody Philly might go after if Jordan Davis and guys like that were off the board and stuff. But I kind of want to ask you about him because it looked like he's off to a slow start again. And Will McDonald, I see like depth charts where he's like third string, like on one side of the line. So, like, what's going on with those two guys? I thought they were going to be like elite pass rushers in the future.
Well, the way Robert Saleh runs his defense is he dresses like 9 or 10 healthy linemen, and then he rotates them a ton. Typically, Quinnen Williams is the only guy who plays more than 60% of snaps in a game. And he had to basically like yell and scream at people for that to happen. I mean, he got into a fight in the sidelines last year because they weren't playing him that much. Because Robert Saleh, I guess, he doesn't like defensive linemen taking plays off, and he likes having a bunch of different guys with complementary skill sets. Jermaine's been pretty good, actually. He's not getting the crazy sack numbers, but I mean, outside of the 1 year at Florida State, he was never really like a big sack guy in college.
True.
His appeal, I think, is more as like a two-way run defender. That's where he's really good. Will McDonald, they picked 15th, even though there wasn't a path to him starting. But I think they knew he'd kind of be a long-term project. He's a little light in the ass for a defensive end right now. He's like 240 pounds. So, and also they put him at they were putting him at like 4-tech in college at Iowa State for stupid reasons. So they basically have to have him relearn a position. Like they knew it would take some time with him. It's just Robert Saleh loved him a lot at the Senior Bowl. But Jermaine's playing okay, and also Bryce Huff being as good as he is. I think Bryce Huff, his pressure rate is like identical to that of Micah Parsons, and he's Bryce Huff. So you're not going to take a guy like that off the field. So and the other thing too is like I think Jermaine's pressure numbers are a little bit better than he's been getting home. He has like 2.5 sacks, which is what he had last year and pretty much the entire season. So there's a lot of positives. I just don't ever think Jermaine's going to be like a 10 sack every year kind of guy. So if you're expecting 10 sacks a year, I just don't know if that's reasonable.
Cool.
What do you think about that, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Huff, so historically, like the first few seasons, he was strictly like a third down guy, and he was still generating the insane pressure rate numbers, but he was getting like minimal snaps. And this is the first year where they finally started to play him a bit more on first and second downs, and he's still causing as much havoc. So he's by far their best pass rusher. And when it comes to McDonald and Jermaine, I think Jermaine, it's more of he's a really good run defender and really good in that aspect. And whatever you can get out of him as a pass rusher, it's a plus. So just pulling up some of the PFF grades, he had his best pass rush game against the Denver Broncos. He had, I think they gave him 5 total pressures. He had an 82.5 pass rush grade and just a 90.4 overall defensive grade. He's getting better as time goes on, but I think as Mike said, like he's never going to be this just all-world pass rusher. He's, I think, more of an all-around type where he can get you some sacks, but he's going to play really good run defense as well. And I think McDonald, that pick was always interesting to me, where it's like I didn't necessarily hate it, but at the time, like JSN from Ohio State was someone where I was like, okay, I think the Jets need one more wide receiver, and you pair him with Garrett Wilson. Now you have more weapons for Aaron Rodgers. That's more of a win now type selection. Obviously, offensive line would have been great, but the Steelers jumped you for Broderick Jones. So McDonald, it seemed like it was weird because it's a pick for the future when you have a win now window where, Carl Lawson is an upcoming free agent. Huff was an upcoming free agent. I think the thought, at least the way I saw it a little bit, was he's going to step in alongside Jermaine Johnson as their 2 pass rushers for the future. I don't think they anticipated Huff taking another leap as a player. But on the flip side of that, Lawson's kind of getting phased out. So I think the more reps McDonald gets, he's going to start winning more and more in pass rush. But right now, they just don't need him to be that every down type player.
I will say this too about the PFF grades. They had Breece Hall as the 15th best running back in the league last week, and he ran for like 200 yards. So it could be wonky.
It's always good to pair with the eye test too, where it's like sometimes it's like, hey, it actually does look like what the game showed, and other times it's like, how is he ranked that low when he looked like the best running back in football that week?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions for him, Brandon?
No, I do not.
Most knowledgeable man in the world. Everybody can write that down.
With me, it's always about those guys that you don't prepare for. Those guys we don't hear all the time. I know who Bryce Huff is. I know who C.J. Mosley is, and I know DJ Reed and Michael Carter, and I know all these guys. I know Dalvin Cook, even though he isn't performing. I know all those guys. But in you guys' opinion, who are the guys that probably don't get the national spotlight in the headlines, even though they're playing in New York or Florham Park or whatever? Who are the guys, or Jersey on game days? Who are the guys that don't necessarily get the national attention, who might be somebody that can disrupt this game and help, the Jets pull off the upset?
Quincy Williams is a guy who I think people may know. Quincy Williams, obviously Quinnen's brother. I think that helps. Like, I don't think people realize he's playing like a top 4 or 5 linebacker in the league right now. Like, just purely in terms of how they've played this year, I don't think I'm outrageous saying Fred Warner 1, Roquan Smith 2, Quincy Williams 3. I mean, he's been that dynamic. He just flies all over the place, hits people hard. Like Robert Saleh, who was a linebackers coach, he was with the Legion of Boom. He was their linebackers coach. So that's kind of his type of guy, is just like a rabid dog who attacks people. And it got Quincy Williams a nice payday, and he's playing up to it. I'd watch for Xavier Gipson too on the offensive side, because remember how they signed Mecole Hardman and then they literally never played him, and now he's demanding a trade for reasons I don't get. I think part of it too is the role that Hardman was going to play, they just gave to Xavier Gipson. He also had the punt return that beat the Bills in week 1. He's kind of a hard knock star, super fast, super jittery. I think eventually they're going to end up giving him a bigger role, because right now their number 3 receiver is Randall Cobb, who has 3 catches all year long. So it's basically just Garrett Wilson, who's been terrific, and Alan Lazard, who's I think really impressed me. Obviously the volume isn't going to be there with Wilson as it is with Rodgers, but a lot of big catches downfield. But I think they need one more guy who's going to separate. And with an Eagles secondary that is banged up right now, number 1, and number 2, I think has looked kind of vulnerable. I mean, Sam Howell passed on him. Kirk Cousins almost had 5 touchdowns on him. If Jefferson didn't fumble at the 1 and hurt my fantasy team
he did
for reasons that stupidest rule in football. I know it helped you, dumbest rule in football. But I think eventually somebody else is going to have to overtake Cobb, who, again, like Dalvin Cook, just kind of gives you next to nothing out there. And it might be Gipson, and it might be this week.
Yeah, I totally agree with Gipson and Quincy Williams. Quincy, it's just he always had the athleticism, but he just is taking it to another level this year in terms of especially like pass coverage. He's not getting burned and overcommitting. His run angles look that much better. The guy I'm going to go with, though, is probably Michael Carter II. And I feel like in a secondary where you have Sauce Gardner, where you have DJ Reed, Carter just doesn't get the recognition. He arguably might be the best slot corner in football. It just seems like when he's on the field, the defense is operating at its fullest capacity. It's playing extremely well. And we've seen the other side of it. When he's off the field, it seems like the Jets get gashed for more yards. It seems like the passing game works a lot better for opposing teams. And, everyone, like I said, everyone talks about that duo, but MC2, he is arguably one of the most critical pieces of that Jets defense because of what he brings in the slot in the NFL game that now, relies on a lot of wide receivers moving from outside to inside, and having that guy in the slot gives the Jets a great opportunity to, play great defense every single week.
So Michael Carter II, because there's 2 Michael Carters on that team, which is very confusing.
And they got drafted in the same year, and one went to Carolina, one went to Duke. Couldn't get it more. They're like evil twins.
It's a very frustrating thing for a dumb brain person like me. I have not many wrinkles on my brain. Is MC2 the given nickname for him? No, is it energy? Because like E equals MC2.
No, that's his full name. He's
Okay,
Michael
that's
Carter
a little
the
bit of a
second.
stretch there, Jake. Equals.
Listen. He's got to shoot bullets, and sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss.
I mean, teams try him early on because they weren't moving the ball on DJ Reed and they weren't on Sauce. So they're like, oh, let's get this 5'9", maybe 180-pound, maybe skinny kid who was a 5th-round pick, and he just shuts guys down.
If it works, it works. Mike, before we let you go, let's get a what's it called? A prediction.
I'm gonna still say Eagles 24, Jets 13.
You think the Eagles are putting up 3?
Yeah, I just have a tough time seeing Breece Hall getting a lot going against Jordan Davis. I just think Davis, even though the offensive line, the interior is really good, and there's going to be no Jalen Carter, I just feel like Jordan Davis is a monster waiting to just completely eat up 2 blockers, and then there goes the best parts of an already struggling offensive line, which means Wilson's going to have to win the game with his arm. And is Billy Turner and Max Mitchell, they're going to be able to slow down a very ferocious pass rush? Not necessarily. And I think the Jets will hold on for a little bit. I think they're going to commit to stopping the run, even though Jalen Hurts, being such a unique weapon as he is, I mean, his thighs are like the size of my waist. He just is a tough runner to really square up and hit. I think eventually they're going to be worn down a little bit physically. And then that's when DeAndre Swift and this big offensive line can really start gashing you. Because if Quinnen Williams isn't getting home because Kelsey's going to be on him and Landon Dickerson, if they're going to be on him, slowing him down, I have a tough time seeing one really big play unless Jalen Hurts goes like Josh Allen in the 4th quarter mode and just loses his mind and throws 2 horrible interceptions. Provided that doesn't happen, I think it'll be tough to really sustain a ton of long drives and get the Eagles off the field quickly.
Tune in late. You've been listening to my guy, Mike Luciano. The guy really does write 500 articles a month. You make guys like me look bad who are lazy, who don't cover one team. Stacking the Box, the podcast, the Jet Press podcast, associate editor at FanSided, editor at the Jet Press, writes for the Lakers, the Raptors, pretty much every damn body.
I think at one point, I did the math at one point. I've written at least one article for, I think, 16 different is the number early on. And not sometimes, hey, a guy's out, can you help cover this? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm not doing 16 beat writer jobs full time with what I'm getting, but yeah, plug me in and I'll write. But if you want me to write about the Jets, I'll write about the Jets. So
appreciate you, man. Hey, we took up some of your Friday, but I appreciate you taking time and coming in on short notice and everything. I know I called you yesterday.
All good, man. I don't have anything else going on. I could have done 2 hours if you wanted.
Yeah, it was good meeting you. Good talking to you.
See you guys.
Catch you later.
Yeah, great guy, that man. Great guy. But what you thinking, Brandon? Are you torn in games like this? How do you feel when stuff like this comes around? I know you only got to prepare for this once every 4 years, or occasionally for a preseason game. But
I actually find it very fun because you got to look at it, at least from my perspective, from 2 different angles, right? You see it from the Jets angle, the Eagles angle. You could even add a third angle of just kind of all right, down the middle, how does it look? And I'm just very excited because this game has a recipe of being a very close one, I feel like, where, if one thing breaks one way, one team could take it, but if it breaks the other way, the other team can take it. And we'll get into it, but I think the Jalen Carter and Darius Slay absences are just, that's where I'm okay, this kind of changes some of the calculus in looking at this game for me.
Yeah, I mean, do we have the injury report thing that we can throw up there, or do we just want to read it off?
Absolutely. Today's injury report. Status report there. Bam.
Ugh. That's
Jalen
brutal.
Carter's out. Justin Evans is out.
Justin Evans is on IR.
That's true. He is.
Yeah.
They put him on IR today. Justin Evans is gone, so they promoted Bradley Roby to the active roster, right?
Yep.
Braden Mann is out of elevation, so he's on the active roster now.
Yep.
They got a linebacker. I think I saw his name once and everything. I didn't do much research on him and stuff. I was kind of hoping nothing broke between 6:30 when we came on. I hadn't been paying attention. I was literally looking at YouTube, man. That's what I was doing. It's before we came on the air here. So Darius Slay out, Quez Watkins out. A lot of Eagles fans probably won't complain about that too much.
Nope.
No, Justin Evans is actually fine. He's out. Sidney Brown is on the IR, right?
No, I got their Twitter up now.
You're right. You're right.
3
I'm
hours
sorry.
ago, we signed Bradley Roby to the active roster and placed safety Justin Evans on injured reserve.
And I'm stupid because we're sitting here looking at the injury report. So Sidney Brown is questionable. Marlon Tui Pelotu came back yesterday. Practice. Fletcher Cox came back yesterday. Fletcher Cox was a full participant. He should be ready to go. We'll see about Marlon Tui Pelotu. But if we're gonna lose Jalen Carter, and you're gonna have to have some guys compensate, I'm thinking like this would be the game you want that to happen in.
Yeah, you're good. I mean, it's gonna be the game that it needs to happen in.
Yeah.
I think it's the absence of Carter. In looking at that, I feel like it's more of an impact in the pass rush because in the run game, you still have Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis is an absolute force on the interior. You still have Fletcher Cox. But now it kind of changes because without Carter, who has looked like one of the best interior defensive linemen in football, let's just get that out of the way early. Now the Jets, which I feel like they could learn from their mistake against Dallas, now you can chip a Hassan Reddick. Now you can worry a bit more about the edge because you don't have a game wrecker like Carter. Not saying that Fletcher Cox isn't a great player, not saying that Jordan Davis isn't a great player, or that the Eagles don't have a great interior defensive line. But let's face it, Jalen Carter has been on a different level. And then taking it to the secondary, now if the Jets want to, unless they have Bradbury shadow Garrett Wilson, you can now get Garrett Wilson in advantageous situations. You now have better shot to utilize a guy like Tyler Conklin in different situations. You can use Alan Lazard, maybe a Xavier Gibson. It opens things up and it puts the impetus on the Jets to capitalize on those Eagles losses. But there's also the flip side. DJ Reed is ruled out for the Jets.
Oh, is he?
He's missing a second straight game with a concussion. So now Eagles have Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, obviously. Bryce Hall is now going to be starting opposite of Sauce Gardner. So the Eagles are in a great position to take advantage of that. So it goes hand in hand. And it's very interesting, at least from my perspective, to see how these teams, whether they do or don't, attack these different situations that may have not looked that they would be this way at the beginning of the week.
How many different names are there on the Jets roster? Because there's 4 people on the defense whose name is some variation of the word Quinn. There's Bryce Hall, there's Breece Hall, there's Michael Carter. Don't worry about the other Michael Carter. What all
right.
Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson, what are we doing?
I'm gonna try to run through this real quick. So you got Quincy and Quinnen Williams. They're brothers.
Yeah.
You have Bryce Hall, who plays cornerback. You have Breece Hall that plays running back. You have Zach and Garrett Wilson. And
you have Michael Carter and Michael Carter,
you have the
who
two
play
Carters.
Cornerback and running back.
The good differentiate thing for that one is the defensive Michael Carter is Michael Carter the second, because he plays defense and his name, he's the second. Michael Carter by itself is the running back. It gets very confusing. I agree.
Jeez. I got you a Michael Carter jersey. It's like, oh, okay. You got the running back. Very cool. I didn't want that. Oh Lord. Okay. So let's kind of get into some of the matchups here. We kind of talked about the defensive line already, but let's do a little bit more. How much of a loss do we think that the Jalen Carter thing is going to be? He's essentially been a 1-for-1 replacement for Hassan Reddick, and Hassan Reddick was probably the best person on defense or not Hassan Reddick, Javon Hargrave. Yeah, yeah. I guess you could say Hassan Reddick might be the best person on defense, but he's a 1-for-1 replacement for Javon Hargrave. The Jets are going to want to run the ball. The Eagles are currently the best run defense in the league, I believe, is what I saw. Are we worried that this Jalen Carter absence is going? I mean, because he's a game wrecker. Are we afraid that he's going to end up wrecking the Eagles game with his absence?
I think it depends, right? Because how much do you want to put on the plate of Jordan Davis, and how many snaps is Davis going to play? And we see it because the Jets and Eagles have very similar defensive strategies. How does that defensive rotation look
Right.
for that front seven? The interesting part is I think Breece Hall, if you look at the Eagles schedule, might be the best running back the Eagles have faced all season.
Oh, yeah.
So that adds a different element to be like, okay, they've shut down these guys before, but is Breece Hall going to find the lane that the likes of Alexander Madison, Brian Robinson, et cetera, haven't found? So I'm of the belief that Hall is going to find some success, but I don't think it's going to be like, oh, Jalen Carter is out, Breece Hall is running for 150.
Okay, it's not like he's going to rip off two 70-yard touchdowns or anything like that.
That I feel like that's more something where if he gets more of like a stretch play to the outside, that has a better shot of happening. But through the interior, I don't think the absence of Jalen Carter is going to completely disintegrate the Eagles' defensive strategy.
I guess, yeah, the kind of the flip side of that, and it's kind of been the impressive thing about Jalen Carter is his like lack of snaps, is that he's doing so good playing like 30% of the snaps. Looking at the other tackles that they have, we're looking at Kentavious Street, potentially Marvin Tuipulotu, Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, and Fletch. So, I mean, yeah, I guess the depth there is probably going to be the important part of this game. Going to see a lot more Kentavious Street than anybody had really hoped to.
And at the end of the day, it's going to show how deep that Eagles defensive line actually is.
Right.
And not saying that the Jets offensive line's world beaters, but Mekhi Becton's a very good run blocker. Joe Tippmann's a very good run blocker. You know, Laken Tomlinson's been better, and he's been pretty good at run blocking. Max Mitchell, for his deficiencies, he's a relatively good run blocker. Like, it's going to be a test, not the ultimate test if you were facing a team like the 49ers or something, but it's not going to be some walk in the park, at least from my perspective.
So there's Breece Hall's the running back.
Yes.
And you got a Bryce Hall.
Yes.
Bryce Hall's the cornerback. He played at Virginia, right?
Yes.
So are we with DJ Reed out, we're saying Bryce Hall will step in at the cornerback position and take his place? Is that
yes. Yes.
Okay. So what about these tight ends kill us all the time. So what about this what about CJ Uzama? You guys, is CJ Uzama and
Tyler Conklin.
Conklin's probably the biggest threat, I'd say, for that Eagles secondary, where he's like their main receiving guy. Uzama's more of a blocking one, although I'd say Jeremy Rucker is the best blocking tight end on the Jets. And Rucker, when they play him, he has the upside to not only be the blocker, but also be a receiver. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Jets want to attack this Eagles defense first and how that first opening script looks, because let's face it, right? A lot of the Jets' quote unquote potential success on offense comes down to their trust in Zach Wilson. If the Jets play a conservative, oh, trust me, I get that reaction. But if they play conservative run pass game where they're trying to hide Zach Wilson, they're going to get blown out. And that's not saying that the Jets are going to let up a bunch of points. It's saying that if you don't give your offense a shot in the sense of actually letting Wilson take a few shots and throwing the ball down the field and not always running on first and second down, but sprinkling in some passes, you're not putting your team in the best position to win. You have to essentially do what you did in the Chiefs game, keeping the defense honest, not getting into a same game flow where the defense can just attack, but keep the Eagles on their toes and try to let Zach Wilson get in a rhythm, because a lot of young quarterbacks, once they get into that rhythm, they play a lot better than they would when all of a sudden they're 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12 every time they get the ball.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, this seems like that rhythm could be found with Conklin. Like this seems like, especially with Slay being out, picking on the middle of that. Well, I guess Slay being out would kind of be counterintuitive to what I'm about to say, but the middle of that field is incredibly vulnerable. This could, like we talked about the first 2 weeks when it was TJ Hawkinson and then Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki with the Patriots. seems like that Conklin, that tight end role is going to be kind of the weak spot here. The one thing that the Eagles do potentially have coming back is a Nakobe Dean, which who the hell knows how good he is. He has never played a full game in his career. One thing that I've been saying is that when he shined at Georgia is when he was able to blitz coming off of literally the two people that he would be coming behind, which is Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Jalen Carter's not there. So, I mean, how do you guys feel about the linebacker core as of now? We've seen them. We've seen, I think who's it been? Nick Morrow and is it Zach Cunningham for the past 4 weeks?
I had no problems with Nick Morrow. I just didn't think he was as good as TJ Edwards, and I didn't understand why Chicago got the guy that we wanted and we got the guy they didn't.
Well, he's from Chicago, TJ.
But Nick Morrow I liked, and I just really liked his fortitude, especially seeing how he got cut at the end of the summer.
I think that he's going to be the one that takes a back seat for Dean.
But I do think he will take a back seat. Yeah, I do. And that's unfortunate because I think he's played well. And I don't think there's no reason for him to take a back seat. Like, I'm almost at the point where I'm like, Nakobe Dean can sit, but that's not what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
At least until we find out what the hell he actually is.
I mean, looking at it, though, right? You wouldn't say the Eagles linebackers have exactly been like a liability this year.
Penalty-wise, they've not really added much to the game. What was that? Was that during Washington? They called a penalty in the red zone on Zach Cunningham, but it was on Morrow for holding, even though it was an incredibly soft penalty to begin with.
Yeah.
To say they haven't added much, I don't know. You might be right.
I think it's just a matter of, without Carter, are they going to have to contribute more in terms of taking on blocks where beforehand having the combination of Carter, Jordan Davis, they were able to play more free, get over the top, get to the ball carrier. I'm just interested to see that because, once again, it all comes back to how the Jets want to attack this Eagles defense. If they see a Nakobe Dean on a Tyler Conklin,
pick on him.
Size-wise, they might want to take advantage of that matchup.
Yep.
Or do they look at that and be like, yeah, we might be at a bit of a disadvantage, but if we can get our guys to the second level, Breece Hall is going to break off a big run. It all depends on what type of strategy whenever
they're, like you said, in that first script, that 15-play script, whenever they're mashing all the buttons trying to see what's going to work, I think this might be one of the more telling first drives for the Jets as far as a team that the Eagles have played.
So 2 questions about the Jet safeties. Like, how good are they, like Jordan Whitehead, and what happened to Ashton Davis? Because Ashton Davis coming out of UCLA, I thought he was going to be somebody.
Ashton Davis is he's a very interesting player. He's more of a role guy now because they have Tony Adams, they have Adrian Amos alongside Jordan Whitehead. The safety position's a bit of a mystery at times because you'll have these great games from Jordan Whitehead, and I think Whitehead's been a lot better this year, but a lot of the times it's missed tackles or bad angles, and those type of things usually happen at the beginning of the game for the Jets because the final score may not tell the full story of this, but they have started slow on defense for the past, I don't know, probably 3-4 weeks where they've let up a big chunk play. They've let up a scoring drive, and it takes them getting it to the second quarter and then the second half to really be like, all right, we're not going to let you move the ball. Basically what happened in Denver. Denver, outside of one touchdown drive, did not move the ball in the Jets defense in the second half. In the first half, though, they took advantage of an aggressive defensive line, a lot of screen passes, a lot of draws. It looked like Denver could have their way with the Jets on offense, even though the defensive line was getting home a lot. Russell Wilson was scrambling out.
Yeah.
They switched that. They started spying. They weren't getting upfield as fast. Saw that in Kansas City as well, where, they let up the big run. They let Mahomes kind of have his way early on. In that second half, or second quarter into the second half, they essentially shut down the Kansas City Chiefs. And the same type of thing happened with the Bills and Josh Allen in week 1. when it comes to the Jets safeties, I think the better question to ask is, can Bryce Hall step up, and can their linebackers such as Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley step up? Because I think we said this before the season started on one of the shows. My biggest worry in this matchup is Dallas Goedert. And now it shifts a little bit to the, can Bryce Hall shut down AJ Brown / Devonta Smith? But my biggest worry was always Dallas Goedert, because the Jets, the last time they played the Eagles, and yes, it was 2 years ago, was that Dallas Goedert absolutely torched them. Mm-hmm. Absolutely took a blowtorch to their secondary. And the Jets historically, at least in the past 2 years, have had a weaker middle of the field where teams are more willing to attack them there because they have a guy like Sauce Gardner that just doesn't let a lot happen. They have a guy like DJ Reed, who's one of the most underrated cornerbacks in the NFL. Quincy Williams stepping up is a huge, huge factor, because if he's able to slow down Goedert a little bit, that makes things that much easier for the Jets defense. Mosley, he's still playing at a very high level, but he's a bit older. He's not the prime CJ Mosley that just did everything all at once on a football field. So if the Eagles can find a way to get past the linebackers, get past the corners, and find a way to attack those safeties, I think they can have success. Because as good as Jordan Whitehead's been, he's not perfect. Tony Adams has had his struggles, and Adrian Amos has had his struggles. But that fact of them attacking the safeties only comes through attacking the linebackers and ensuring that you can attack those linebackers and ensuring that the run game works so you can set up the play action to suck a safety down a little bit further so you can hit the pass over the top.
As far as CJ Mosley goes, does he still have green hair?
That's a great question. I'm not sure about that,
because I'm wondering if it's like a Samson vibe. Like if he like lost his hair, he lost his power. Like I don't know if there's like a link between the two or exactly what's going on.
I always thought Uzama was the one with the green hair.
Uzama has green hair now.
Yeah,
I think, or bleached. I don't know. That's an odd cat. Huge face on that man. Huge face. All time big faces. Normal sized human being with a Mount Rushmore.
Did you do like a wardrobe change in the middle of the show?
Yeah, I got chilly. I was hot before, and then I got chilly.
Sure, like I remember that hood when we got started.
Hey, he threw on a sweatshirt.
Well,
gotcha.
Yeah. I'm all good. And also, I have wicked pit stains on the shirt underneath of this, but that's just because I've had the shirt for a long time, and they're just permanently there.
Gotcha.
Because I don't care how many times you look it up on how to get rid of pit stains with stain remover, they'll never come out. That's where I'm at. So let's so Sauce Gardner. I remember seeing something because he's probably I don't want to say the most feared, but probably gonna have some of the biggest impact in this game. I remember seeing that maybe a couple weeks ago that he wanted, or maybe he was asking Saleh if he could start shadowing. Did that happen?
It was like vaguely hinted at. It wasn't like I want to start shadowing, but he basically said he was open to it if possible. I'll be real with you. This isn't the game for that.
Right.
Unless, and this is the only caveat, unless the Jets are like, okay, we're going to stick you on AJ Brown and we'll just figure out shutting down Devonta Smith with Hall and our safeties. That's the only way I could see it, but that's not really how the Jets run their defense. They keep their guys on specific sides. So Sauce is probably going to see a little bit of Devonta Smith, a little bit of AJ Brown. And same goes for the rest of their secondary.
Okay. Yeah, because that was always one of the, and I guess if you normally have DJ Reed, you're kind of set on both sides. But yeah, this will be I think very telling on what does Sauce play on the right side. This will be telling on the left side, I believe is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good then. Let's see. We were talking the Eagles offensive line always has a way of shutting down the best player on the opposing team's defensive line. Quinnen Williams, does he normally switch side to side? Are we going to see a Quinnen Williams on a Sua Opeta this week, or is he going to stick to being on Landon Dickerson?
I think they're more open to switching on the defensive line because just in the nature of how they just rotate everyone. So I don't think there's just going to be Quinn Williams is consistently on Dickerson. But I'm very interested to see that matchup because, strength against strength. Who wins? Does the Eagles' offensive line, in this case, win that battle, or can the Jets generate some pressure?
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I guess Stout always has a way, and that's kind of the great thing about him. Always has a way of shutting down Aaron Donald, which he wants. I don't know if we brought that up on Monday, Jeff. That Aaron Donald once again 0 sacks on the Eagles. Never sacked an Eagle.
I didn't say that because I actually didn't know that, to be honest with you. But
yeah,
I did say that I thought Jalen Carter was the best defensive tackle on the league, and he was on the field that day. Excuse me, and he was on the field with a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So here's my question, right? Do you think, and I think they shift towards Quinnen, but do you think they're going to focus on Quinnen, or do you think they're going to be a little bit more focused on some of the edge guys, aka Bryce Huff, when he's on the field? Because if you have Huff and Quinnen on the field at the same time, are you willing to put Huff in that one-on-one matchup when he has one of the best pass rush win rates in the league, or are you willing to divert more attention there and let Quinnen have that matchup and trust your guy there?
You mentioned eyeball tests earlier. I've never heard anybody say this, and I don't know if I can even prove this. I believe the Eagles are so arrogant, they think that Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson can go one-on-one with anybody and win. So I think they typically go into matchups trying to see what they're going to do about the interior of the defensive line, because they believe, based on the way they build, that, you attack from the inside, and the easiest way to rattle quarterbacks is by getting the immediate pressure up the middle of the formation. I don't think they believe that anybody can be Lane Johnson, even though he may be at a point now where that extra kick step at the beginning of the snap, that may help him out a little bit. And I think that I think Lane, as great as he is, not taking anything away from him, I think some of Lane's sackless efforts come from the benefit of having Jalen Hurts who can run.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that they're very arrogant about it. Why wouldn't you be?
Exactly.
I mean,
no, 100%.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's not like it's unwarranted.
I guess taking it from that perspective, those one-on-one matchups between either Johnson and Mailata and Huff are going to be that much more important, because does Huff's overall talent and speed overcome that, or do the Eagles tackles show why they are some of the best, if not the best, in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, and it also I can't remember if it was Washington or if it was LA, but they started having running backs chip as well. So I mean, if push comes to shove and they need to do that, I mean, I think I think everything will sort itself out. Again, this Eagles offensive line, I've said it and I will stand by it. Jeff Stoutland I have more trust in him than any other human being on the world. If I was dead sober and he looked at me and said, "Hey man, you're too drunk to drive," I'd be like, "You're right, Jeff. I'm out. I can't do it. Call an Uber." And I would be totally fine with that. So yeah, I mean, whatever their game plan is, I mean, it's gonna work.
I totally agree with that. I have no issues with Jeff Stoutland about anything. I think I saw a tweet once, Jeff Stoutland could slap my mother, and I believe I would check her because I think she'd be out of line.
Yeah, her and Devontae Smith.
It was Devontae.
There's a reason Jeff Stoutland is the highest paid position coach in the entire NFL. That's
the one of the few things that Chip Kelly gave us that was worthwhile.
Yeah, he took a lot away too.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else to add on this game? Any other thoughts? Any other questions about anything that you want to talk out loud?
I guess the two things would be final predictions, and then what the storyline is coming out of the game, right?
Yep.
I'm feeling confident, man. I think this is a game the Eagles can eclipse 30 in.
Really?
I think this is a game they can actually they can hold the Jets to about 13 or 16 or something like that. Maybe a touchdown, 3 field goals, something in that range. After what I saw last week, I just don't believe in Zach Wilson, and I'm riding a streak, even though that streak has nothing to do with the game that's coming up on Sunday. But I believe that the Eagles get to 13 wins over the Jets this week. I just don't see how the Jets can win this game.
I don't think 30 is in store in this game. I mean, the Eagles have kicked more field goals than any other team in the NFL. Until I can see them actually have a consistently cohesive red zone offense, buddy, I I don't know. I mean, to be fair, they're scoring all these points with their field goals. I mean, you get that many drives, that's what's going to happen. But to me, I'm thinking this one might be I think Mike was too high on 24. I think this could be a 2017 kind of game. I think this one's going to be much closer than anybody really wants.
So to start off, I think the Eagles win this game.
Yeah.
I do think the Eagles win this game. I think I think right now they are a better team than the Jets. And we could get into positional battles and how they stack up here and there. But I think overall the Eagles are a better team than the Jets. With that being said, I do think this is going to be a grimy, drag it out through the mud type game.
Yeah.
Because the Jets defense, I think, has enough to stymie the Eagles offense to an extent. I'm not saying the Eagles are going to put up 7 points or 10 points and the Jets are going to look like the 85 Bears. Trust me, I am not saying that. The Eagles, I think, are going to score anywhere in the range from like 17 to 25 points. The question comes down to, I think, number one, can the Jets force a turnover or two? Because when the Jets have done that, that's usually been a big momentum swing in their games. You know, look at the Chiefs game, look at the Bills game, yada, yada. When they're forcing the turnovers, they're usually in those games or winning those games. And then the most important aspect, what I think it comes down to, at least from a Jets perspective, can Zach Wilson do enough on offense to keep you in the game, or in a best case scenario, win you that game? And I'm not talking, just simple game managing. No, he's going to have to make some throws in this game because the Eagles are a well enough coached team and a talented enough team where they're going to force the quarterback to do so. And we saw that he has the capacity to do that. Look at the Kansas City game. He made the throws in that game. But it comes down to also, does the coaching staff give him that opportunity, and can he replicate a performance that, let's face it, he hasn't had too much throughout his career? I think he makes some of those plays. I don't think he makes enough. And I think ultimately that, combined with the Jets probably letting up one more touchdown than they probably should in this game, is going to be the difference in the Eagles winning.
Interesting. So you have them giving up one more touchdown than you think they should.
The Jets? Yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a big miscommunication from like maybe Bryce Hall and a safety where the Eagles run enough plays one way and then take that shot over the top could be like a difference maker. Because we've seen that happen. Philadelphia is very well coached. They are a very good team. And that offensive staff knows exactly how to set things up. And I'm not saying that the Jets aren't well coached, but they are also sometimes too stuck in their ways, and it takes a little bit to make an adjustment. Them not making an adjustment soon enough could cost them some points.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. I think that's the right thought there. If it were to be an Eagles getting one extra touchdown, then you'd think it would be one from outside the red zone. I think that's, again, this red zone offense has been abysmal and very frustrating.
Also goes to the point, the Jets have one of the best red zone defenses. They went, for some reason, they can let a team drive down the field. Once they get in the red zone, it's just field goal after field goal. So yes, I agree with you. The Eagles are going to hit one from outside the red zone. I think that is going to be the difference maker.
Yeah, I think they're going to hit one from outside the red zone. But when you were talking about like stories coming out of this game, I'm actually take your extra touchdown. I'm gonna make it that extra red zone touchdown. I feel like this is one of those games where we're fooled by some red zone productivity. I feel like as vaunted as the Jets' red zone defense is, I feel like the Eagles punch a couple of those in that we normally see as field goals. And I think we come out of this one with haters saying that, they only did it because it was the Jets, and us feeling like the red zone offense is fixed, even though it isn't.
Jake, do you want to go, and then I'll give mine?
Yeah, I have a couple. So the one that I was leaning towards was that this could potentially be the kind of thing where we're like, oh, that's how valuable Jalen Carter is. Like how the offense or the defense performs without Jalen Carter. Half of me was thinking that. But Also, the conversation didn't happen last year when Jalen Hurts was out. We didn't like the storylines were never, oh, Jalen Hurts is this incredibly valuable person. It was always is whatever Gardner Minshew stinks. It was that kind of a thing. So I don't think, but that's the one that I wanted to say. But what I'm going to go with is I think this is kind of what we said when we were talking about the Eagles, where their hardest games would be in the preseason and where that first loss would come. I think that this is going to be the kind of game where the storyline is, oh yeah, the Eagles can win whatever way they need to win. They can win that gritty, dirty game. Like you said, it's going to be sloppy. It's going to be ugly. I think this is going to be that win ugly game where the Eagles are kind of in control of it, but it's closer than we thought. But I think at the end, it's going to be like, oh yeah, they can just do that. We can get 300 yards rushing in a game if we need to. That's where I think that this, maybe not 300 yards, but you get, there's a little bit of hyperbole. But yeah, it's going to be, the conversation is, oh yeah, they can do that. If everything's shut down, they can do that.
And I'm going to say big Devontae Smith game with DJ Reed being out. So I think they go to him a lot. And, we tend to do what we didn't do last game. So we didn't get Devontae the ball. We're going to be making a point to get the ball to Devontae this time.
Yeah, they pick on it. That's what they've been doing. Like with Emmanuel Forbes against Washington, pick on the weakest guy. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Like when Darius Slay went out against the Buccaneers, they didn't automatically pick on who the hell came in? Was that Josh? Yeah, Josh Jobe came in. They didn't. It's like no, that's the thing to do, you idiot. So yeah, I think the Eagles are going to pick on that.
So my storyline that I'm thinking is, because it's going to be a grimy, drag-it-out game, for whatever reason, the main topic surrounding the Eagles is going to be what happened to the Eagles offense, which then there's now a second part where I'm going to say it is going to set them up for a big offensive explosion against the Miami Dolphins a week later.
We're going to have to.
Where I feel like there's going to be a lot of unwarranted questions where people are going to be like, oh, this is an Eagles problem, instead of realizing the type of matchup issues that the Jets defense poses for the Eagles, which then the following week, when A.J. Brown gets to face non-Sauce Gardner cornerbacks, right, he probably goes for 150 plus. It's a two-pronged prediction, but I'm very confident that if the Eagles get through this game with a win, they are going to probably give Miami one of their best games outside of Buffalo this season.
At least on offense. I'm still, and I know it's a week ahead, but I'm still counting that Miami game. Unfortunately, Kelly Green's, it's going to be the Eagles' first loss.
I'm feeling that way too. I hope I change my mind between now and then, but I'm feeling like that's going to ruin
and it all goes in with this, how hard this game is going to be. Is that, I mean, well, hell, Darius Slay's out right now.
That you don't see very often.
And next week's going to be a track meet, and I think your 2 30-plus-year-old cornerbacks are going to get kind of torched by Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill coming off of this physical of a game. I do have one more thing for everybody. I didn't prep you guys for this. So it is Friday the 13th, an incredibly superstitious day. If you have them, feel free. Now is the time to discuss your game day superstitions. I can go first if you guys want me to buy you some time, because I'm a lunatic. I am neurotic, and I have probably about 15 things that I do on game days. Okay.
I kind of want to see what you came up with.
Okay. No, this is not what I came up with. This is just an every week thing for me. All right. So, and season. All right. So start the season off. Okay. 5 minutes before the Eagles' first kickoff, I put the giant big Eagles flag outside. Okay. That's what I do there. All right. And after that, so they get, and then the day before that, I make a batch of bagels. Okay. I make a batch of bagels. It's 5 bagels. It's 2 giant bagels and 3 medium-sized bagels. What I do is I split the dough in half initially, split one half, and that makes it 2 bagels, split the other half in 3. So that makes 3 smaller bagels. On the game day of the morning, I make a bagel sandwich. Okay. If the Eagles win that game, then I freeze one of those bagels and then I eat it the next week along with a different bagel. If the Eagles lose that game, I throw away all those bagels because nobody wants loser bagels. Okay, so then during the game, I sit in one spot on my couch. It's not even on the couch. It's on an armrest. We have a sectional. It's a soft flex, but it's a flex. We have a sectional. I sit on the arm, and if I stand up, then I put my feet in the same spot. what I'm wearing at that time, I have a T-shirt that I wear for every single game because it's a lucky T-shirt. It's a Super Bowl T-shirt, the black kind of the speckled black with the gray speckles. I have that one. I wear the jersey that the team is wearing. I have black underwear. I don't want to totally get into it because they get a little bit dirty. But I don't wear the same pair. I wear a pair of midnight green athletic shorts, and I have socks. I have Eagle socks that I wear. And maybe you're thinking, wow, Jake, how could you have this many socks? Aren't they going to get holes in them? And here's the thing is that I bought 9 pairs of these socks. So if one sock gets a hole in it, then you just grab a sock from a different pair and put it right in there. That way you're not going with 2 unlucky socks at the same time. You can spread the luck out to a different sock. It's a very smart move. I highly recommend everybody doing that. I have my slippers that I put on. They're good. They're not good slippers anymore. They're very old and worn down, but I wear those every game. Okay, Eagles win. I put out a yard flag, an Eagles yard flag. And then 5 minutes before the next game, I pull that yard flag down until they win. And then I always, every single week, I start off on Monday or the day after the game. My brain, I'm like, okay, there's no way that the Eagles can win next week. And then gradually through the week, and it gets to Saturday, and I'm like, there's no way the Eagles could possibly lose this game. But never one time do you ever say that the Eagles are going to win. So that's my game day superstitions, and I will not falter from them. Oh, my dogs wear Pete, the Beagle Basset Hound. He's got big barrel chest. He wears a jersey. And then Mike, the miniature pincher beagle, he wears a green bandana. So that's what I got going on. Oh, and I have an Eagles koozie, this one, where I always have the logo facing the screen because I'm not a lunatic.
Jake, I feel like that was brilliant, and I feel like you should have gone last because nothing I have is as good as that.
I'm not proud of
I was just going to say I don't invite people over when I think it's going to be a loss. Like if I'm watching the game at home, I only invite people over when I think we're going to win the game because I don't want to have people bummed out over their house when we've lost the game. So when I'm pretty sure it's going to be a win, and I'm working, of course, at home anyway, but I'll still have people over because they want to watch the game. I'll only do that when I feel like you are guaranteed to win. And I don't wear, believe it or not, I don't wear like Eagles gear on game days. Like I may wear it during the week or something like that, but I've never worn it on game days because I believe every time I had done that when I was a child in a big game, they lost.
Well, that's fair.
Some of those superstitions there.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally just eat an egg and cheese. Like that's it. That's it.
One single egg, one slice of American.
Yeah,
egg and cheese bagel. Egg and cheese bagel.
See, that's where I'm at. Yeah. The thing with the bagels is that you can just do them so many different ways, so it works. Like that way I don't get like tired of like cream cheese.
And if I'm working from home, I like wings. It's always wings. It's nothing else. Never pizza, anything, just wings. Like I have to have wings at home on game day. So I guess does that qualify as a superstition?
That's good.
Just like a game.
Yeah, no, that's good.
That's good. See, so in 2020, I made chili every single game, and we did chili dogs every single week. That was my wife's favorite food. She still won't touch it because we just had it so often. And then that year went terribly, so we just don't do that anymore. You know, if something doesn't work, then you just scrap it. That's we're on bagels now.
Gotcha.
Fair enough.
So I'm not crazy.
Not at all.
It's a proven method. It's the equation's there.
Does this work most of the time when you do all this, or is like how does that work out for you?
You know, it's been working. 5-0, baby.
All right,
keep
at it. Good work.
Can't complain. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
All right. You guys have anything else?
Nope.
Happy birthday, Brian Dawkins.
Happy birthday, Brian Dawkins.
Slightly ahead of Randall, slightly ahead of Jason Kelsey, my favorite Eagle of all time.
There you go. What do we know what channel the game is on? It's at Fox. 425.
It's on Fox.
It's on Fox. Okay. Do we know who the broadcasters are?
It's is that going to be is that Romo? No, Romo.
No, that's CBS. It's not going to be Greg Olson.
Well, it's their America's Game of the Week, so it's
so it will be Greg Olson.
America's Game of the Week is going to be Olson and
okay, so it's I was going to say whoever their A team is, so that I guess that's Olson.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, they took Troy Aikman and Joe Buck away, so they had to come up with something.
No,
Olson's great though. I like Olson.
I said it on Monday is that we're going to be really tired, or we're going to be really mad at Tom Brady whenever he takes over Greg Olson's job. We're all going to be very mad at him.
Burkhardt is good. I do like Olson. Olson does a good job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet. And then on Sunday night we get to watch the Tyrod Taylor Giants, who will probably do better than the Daniel Jones Giants. That'll be fun. What a fun. Stop putting them in prime time. Damn it! Why?
I like watching them lose, but I'd like to have a better game in prime time. I'm still saying in prime time.
They missed the flex out window by 1 week
Was it really just 1 week?
because I think you can start flexing games in week 7.
Damn it.
That's what
Well,
they did.
that's where we're at. We're gonna get to watch that. Anyway, thank you guys very much for joining us. Thank you for sticking around and watching. Talked a lot of nonsense. Had Mike on to talk Jet stuff. We always have Brandon on. We got to listen to his insight on Jet stuff and Eagles stuff. He's going to be skating a very fine line this weekend between sanity and insanity. That's Jeffrey Knox. My name is Jake Beckman. Thank you guys very much. See you on Monday. Go Birds.
Go Birds.